everyone. Welcome back to the Scott Stokely podcast. I have Nelson Tressler with me, and we're going to be talking about a very interesting story. As those of you who have followed me know, my life has gone up and down, and the highs have been quite high, and the lows have been equally as low. And I am very much interested in talking to people that have had other interesting journeys. With all due respect for those of you who are lucky enough to have had things easy, by the way, I'm trying very hard to do that for my kid, right? I want life to be easy, but your stories aren't necessarily as interesting as those of us who have done this. And Nelson's story I was reading about, and it was interesting. And well, let's just introduce you, Nelson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you had a book that came out this year called The Unlucky Sperm Club. I got the word book written down. It's The Unlucky Sperm Club.
Yep. Yeah.
And like, if you're looking for a catchy title, some purple cow marketing where the title makes you want to pick it up, I think you succeeded. Did you come up with that?
Yeah. You know what? Originally, I was going to call it the Lucky Sperm Club because the whole spin of it is, just like you talked about, a rough beginning. I actually look at that as a blessing because of all the things that it taught me. But at the end of the day, yeah, we chose the Unlucky Sperm Club because it wasn't out there.
Well, I think it's fantastic. And it's funny that you talk about lucky versus unlucky, because I came from a troubled background, but that troubled background came from having every advantage that a kid could have. I won't list them all, but like, I wasn't born into trouble. I made the trouble myself.
Yeah.
But stories may be a little different than that. And I don't even want to try to tell your story. Can you just give everyone listening background?
Yeah, sure. So my mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. While she was pregnant with me, her father, who was a local trash collector in a small town in central Pennsylvania, drove into the town square, spotted two police officers there, stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and wounding another. And eventually my grandfather was captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty for what he had done. And during my grandfather's trial, my mom got up and testified to the jury that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that that police officer had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And that was kind of the start of it. My grandfather's first trial ended in a hung jury. The second trial, they took the death penalty off the table and found him guilty and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he ended up spending the rest of his life, more than 40 years, behind bars, leaving behind. He had a family. He had 15 children, including my mom and now me, to kind of deal in the wake of what he had done in this small town. And then my mom, the 15-year-old mother, eventually she turned 21 and met a man who eventually became my stepfather. Come to find out, he was an alcoholic and very emotionally and physically abusive to me and my mom almost every single day. And eventually they had four more children. And because of the lifestyle that they were living, a lot of the basic needs for my siblings fell upon me, including diaper changing and bottle feeding, and even waking up at 2 a.m. To put crying babies back to sleep. And that's kind of the way that my life went. And eventually, it had a huge effect on my social life, dealing with all the things that I had to deal with because of my grandfather, but also at schooling. My mom would rather me stay home and help her with the kids than go to school. And I hated school anyhow. And I can remember in the fourth grade looking down at my report card at the end of the year and excited to see who I was going to have for fifth grade homeroom, and realizing that I had straight Fs and that I would be repeating the fourth grade. And, the next year they placed me into special ed to try to get me the help that I needed. Come to find out, I had dyslexia. I couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't spell. And, that's the way life went for a while. And then one day my stepfather was, walking home drunk from a bar one night, and there was somebody else who was driving home drunk from that bar, and they ended up hitting and killing him. And it was at this time that my mom, as hard as her life has been to this point, she had dropped out of school in the eighth grade, you know, um, had no kind of education, never worked outside of the home, and as abusive a relationship as she had with my stepfather, losing him kind of left her with no hope. She had no idea how she was going to provide for a family of five with really no skills and never working outside of the home. So it was at this time that she decided that she was going to take her own life, and she attempted suicide. And fortunately, she wasn't successful, but when she did get out of the hospital, it was at that time she decided that she couldn't care for all five kids on her own. And that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And my sister went to go live with my aunt, and my mom kept my three brothers. And it was at the time, prior to that, I was worried about my stepfather coming home drunk and beating me or my mom and having to care for kids and never going to school. And the one rule my gram had for us was she didn't really care how we did at school. Education was never a huge priority in my family, but she absolutely expected you to go to school. And, she had 15 kids of her own, and that was probably her for her own sanity. At least you kids were going to go to school and give her some
Yeah.
free time. So but as I started to go to school, I started to realize that I wasn't necessarily stupid. I just hadn't been putting forth the effort and hadn't really put together an extended period of time to where I could follow along in school. And it was at this time that I started to kind of look at my life and see what direction it was heading. And I realized that it was heading in a direction that I didn't want it to go. My life was kind of sucking, and it was heading to where I was going to kind of live a pretty miserable life as an adult. And I
And
remember go ahead.
what age were you starting to realize this?
This was seventh grade.
So
And
still,
yeah, still young. I mean, I'd lived with my gram for a few years to this point, and my basic needs were being met. I wasn't, being beat. I wasn't living in fear of my stepfather. I wasn't having to take care of kids. So, I actually, started to, be a kid. And that's when I started to kind of think about where I was heading and what direction I was heading. And I was dealing with the wake of what my grandfather had done. And in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, a lot of the stories are in there on what I had to deal with. And, from dating the granddaughter of one of the cops that my grandfather had shot, not knowing, and, you know, uh, dating a girl that I was taking to a school dance, and her father followed us to the dance to make sure that we didn't pull off the road and rape her, and they made her get picked up early because they didn't trust us to take her home. So, I'm dealing with all of that stuff, but um, you know, a local university came and gave us an assembly at our school and talked about what it would take to get into college. And kind of all those bells and whistles went off in my head. And I thought, what if I could go to college? That kind of felt like that would check all the boxes. And if I could get a college degree, my life would be perfect.
right.
And,
Can I,
go ahead.
do you mind if I interrupt you? I have a question about something.
Yeah.
So where did this come from? I mean, you're 12 years old and you are making these very mature dot connections. I mean, you're putting pieces together at a young age. I mean, where did that come from?
You know what? My gram, she always believed in me. And, she always was telling me, you know what, Nelson, you're going to make something of your life. And she told me that enough to where I actually started to believe it and wanted more for my life. And, having that person believe in you so much and just really you could feel how much she loved me and how much she wanted me to really go above and beyond what, anybody in that family had ever done. And I think a lot had to do with that. I also got placed into the Big Brother, Big Sister program, and was influenced by my big brother, Chuck, who, kind of gave me that contrast. I came from a family, where, my stepdad was beating my mom and me and was an alcoholic and kind of dealing with all of that. And then I kind of got the contrast of, hey, that's not necessarily the way all families are. And there were alternatives out there. And I got to see that with my big brother's family. I also got to see that, with some friends and some girls that I dated. So I think contrast was a huge thing as well. And just that drive to do something with your life. And I don't know where that came from, but it was there. And like I said, I set that goal to become, to graduate college. But anytime that you're going to tell yourself you're going to do something that's hard, we have that voice in the back of our head that starts screaming at us all the reasons that we can't do it. And at this time of my life, I'm in special ed. I can't read, I can't write, I can't spell. Of my Graham's family, of those 15 children, only 2 of them had ever graduated from high school. None had ever even attended a college. And so here I am. And I remember thinking to myself, Nelson, you're going to be lucky to graduate high school, let alone college. But I saw what the alternative was, and I didn't want that. So I started to really strive to do all I could to eventually get that college degree. And 12 years after that assembly and making that goal, 4 different universities, 4 years in the Air Force on the GI Bill, I eventually became that first person in my family to graduate from college.
That's awesome. Now, did you get, I mean, I know your mom and stepdad were flawed, but did you get anything from them that you took with you, or did it really just happen when you got out of there?
What do you mean took with me? Like,
Well, there's a lot of very well-intentioned parents who can preach a very good message, but they're incapable of applying it to their own life.
yeah.
College
Well,
drop or high school dropouts will tell their kids to stay in school. They're given the right message. That wasn't something they could do. So I'm wondering, you have an alcoholic, abusive stepdad, but the world's not black and white. Did you get anything from them, or did it really just happen after you got out?
well, you know what? I definitely, I didn't have a lot of good role models growing up. And, so I didn't really have that role model to shoot for. But what I did get from my stepfather was I knew exactly what I never wanted to be and what I never wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
and how I never wanted to act. And sometimes, that's all we have is what we don't want to do, and we don't necessarily know what we want to do. So I started making those choices that would get me as far away from being that type of man as I could be. And I think that helped me. As far as my mom, I have a great relationship with her. I mean, um, eventually she remarried, and she has been remarried for 35 years now, to my stepfather, who I consider my father and now. And she couldn't be living any more of a drastic different life than she was. I mean, my stepfather now, would never dream of hitting her and treats her, like the woman that she is, and they have a great life, and are, again, you wouldn't recognize my mom. And that's the difference of who you have in your life. And because of him, he raised my 3 brothers as if they were his own children. And so she's living a drastically different life now. And, she's my biggest fan, and I love her. And, she lived a harder life than I've lived, with what she had to go through. So there's definitely no judgment on my behalf. She did the best that she could. And, we all make those mistakes, and we all are flawed. And, she's a great grandmother and a great mother now.
So we have something in common. In my autobiography, the very first sentence, the one where you can give this one message you want to impart to the world that'll be there after you're gone, my the line I chose was, "Go where the love is, not where it's supposed to be."
I agree
And
with
that, yeah, and that is not, and this was not a knock on where I came from, and I'm not knocking where you came from, but there was people like in the Big Brother program that you that you got to. By the way, I also had big brothers. I didn't have a father, and I had big brothers in the Big Brother program also.
Yeah, great organization.
It is absolutely. All right, so I still want to know though, what about that college assembly tour sparked you? It wasn't just that it was a roadmap. Was it also, or what, or was it just that they gave you the steps?
You know what? It kind of opened up the possibility for the first time. It had me thinking about the future and where my life was heading. And it was kind of that answer like, hey, if you could do this, if you could get a college degree, again, I thought that would be the answer to all of my problems. Like, man, if I had a college degree, I mean, I grew up to where you opened the refrigerator and the only thing in there were like half used condiments. And, I grew up in a house where it was literally a crapshoot whether or not, if you turned on the light switch, whether the lights were going to work or not. And, again, I talk about all those things in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club. So, when I went to live with my gram, there was always food there. I never had to worry about, the abuse or anything like that. And so my basic needs were being met. And I started to think about the future and not only my life, but, I always wanted to have a family and I wanted, my kids to never have to worry about those sort of things. And that college degree, I think, meant that they never would have to worry about, having enough to eat and having the lights turn on and having heat in your house and having your basic needs met. That was the answer. And so that was the goal that I set, even though I didn't really know what goals were, um, is it, to get that. And I thought, okay, that'll be my part in providing for my family.
So you were shown what was possible when you were 12, but when we're 12, we're still like, we're just dumb kids, all of us at 12.
Oh yeah.
How did you figure out exactly what to do? There had to have been other people that you reached out to.
Oh yeah, I mean, the one good thing that I had going for me was I was a pretty good athlete, and I got signed up for, football and baseball and wrestling, and that also gave me that avenue to take out all that aggression and anger that I had in my life at that time, and it ended up being a good enough football player to where colleges were looking at me. And fortunately for me, I had one college that wanted me to come and play football for them at their school. And because of that, they were willing to massage the admission requirements. And when I say massage, I'm talking deep tissue, elbow in the back massage of those admission requirements. And I got into school because of that. And, I went to school for a year, but what I quickly realized was, even after all of the grants and all of that, I wasn't able to afford to go back. I owed $3,500. I was living with my grandma at the time. She made $4,800 a year on Social Security. And so I had to kind of figure out a different route. And that's when I just decided to go into the Air Force and on the GI Bill. And, the Air Force checked a lot of boxes for me. One, it showed me how I was going to be able to pay for college and eventually get that degree. And then two, it kind of gave me the way out of my small town where my family and me represented, so many things that I had to deal with. And for the first time, when I joined the Air Force, I was kind of like Nelson Nobody. My last name meant nothing, no negative connotations. And it really was liberating because for the first time, I felt like I could be anybody that I wanted to be. And I think that's when I really started to reinvent myself and determine that, I could be anyone I wanted to be if I just made those choices.
Gotcha. Did you drink when you were young?
I did drink when I was young, and fortunately, I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank for 25 years, but definitely did my share of drinking. That was kind of one of the things in our family. I mean, in my book, I talk about us being, 10, 11, 12 years old, and every party my family had a keg at it. And us kids would sneak over, with our red Solo cup and, fill it up, and then sneak back with the rest of the kids and all share a glass of beer. And we would do that until, we couldn't walk anymore. But yeah, I went through that for sure.
So I'm curious about that, and I'm asking you as a metaphor for everyone in that situation. But it's so common that a kid sees he sees dad hit his mom, and that's the worst thing ever growing up. But then he grows up to do it, or
Yeah.
your parents smoke and it stinks and it's gross, and you think they're gonna die, and then they a higher percentage grow up to do it. So why did you drink if you saw this thing that was so horrible?
Yeah, you know what? It was a way of life. I mean, in every adult in my life drank, and so you just kind of figured that's the way life was, and so you do follow that. And I think the same way, like with abusive parents, you see that happening, and you think that's just the way that it is. And fortunately for me, I knew there was no doubt you should never hit a woman, and that clicked inside of my brain early on, thankfully. So I never had to kind of deal with that, or ever doing that. So I was fortunate in that way. But just like drinking, I didn't, I I don't know that you equate. I mean, I think you do. You equate that, the drinking may have caused the abuse, but I don't know. I think more than anything, I think you can kind of justify, like, hey, he was just a jerk and abused women, because I knew people who drank that didn't abuse their wives or their children. So you don't kind of connect those dots, even
Okay.
though, hindsight, you can see how that alcohol, uh, attributed to the abuse.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That actually explains it probably the best I've heard. That you're just not connecting the dots between the two. And yeah, I get that. Were you angry? I mean, when you were coming out of this as a kid, especially, was anger a part of your being?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was angry because I was in that victim mindset. I mean, here I was, um, I hadn't shot a police officer, and I hadn't gotten up and testified that, I was raped, and the product of that. I hadn't done any of that stuff, but yet almost every day of my childhood, I had to deal with those consequences. And I was angry, and I took out that frustration. First of all, in fighting, I was always fighting people, anybody who, looked down on me. I had a huge chip on my shoulder. And, if they said anything to me or made fun of me or whatever, I quickly got in there and fought, and did that all the way through high school, in fact. And then fortunately, like I said, I got into sports, and, now I was on the football field or on the wrestling mat, and all of a sudden you could take out your anger and your frustration. And not only didn't you get in trouble, you got praised for how tough you were, and how you were able to do that. So fortunately for me, I got involved with those and was able to kind of steer that frustration and that anger to constructive things that actually benefited me.
All right. So now you said the word that it's what I want to get into the weeds with you on, and the word is victim,
Yeah.
because this has been, I think, one of the biggest challenges, just society wide right now, is that we are doing a fantastic job, and it's a good thing, recognizing victimization for a lot of different reasons. But I have this fear about, as soon as you cast people in the victim role, people tend to fail.
Yeah.
And
Well,
really fine line, because I think they can both exist, but I don't, it's a challenge. So you were a victim. Clearly, 100%, nobody would argue with that. But had you stayed a victim, you're not here talking to me right now.
Absolutely. And I mean, my book is called The Unlucky Sperm Club. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices. And that's what I truly believe is we can all claim the victim card. And you know what? I could have claimed it. I mean, a lot of the bad things that happened to me weren't my fault, but you can't control what circumstances you are. You can only control how you react to them. And I could have sat there and played the victim card and woe is me. Uh, but the life I would have lived would have sucked. And, thankfully I took control of my circumstances, took ownership for my success, regardless of what situation I found myself in. And I think that's where a lot of people, regardless if they were in bad situations and it was their fault or not, or whatever happened, a lot of them want to play the victim card and use that as a crutch and an excuse not to, take control of their lives. And again, we can't control what happens to us. All we can control is how we react to it. And that's what, kind of determines where our life is going to end up is, you know, how we respond to the effects of what happened to us, and our response will make all the difference. And I think a lot of people, are kind of pointing the victim, and people are using that as a crutch to not be as productive or not be as successful as they really could be. And I think what I was able to do was able to take those circumstances, and I knew a lot of people weren't expecting great things out of me because of my situation, but I wanted to prove them wrong. And so I actually gained fuel from my situation, and I wanted to show all those people who doubted me that not only could I succeed, but I was going to exceed, greater than anybody even could have imagined, for those people who knew me when I was young.
So why do people want to take the victim role? And I like everything you're saying, every person out there playing the victim role would probably not only agree with you, they've probably said those same words. You're not responsible. You can't control what happens to you. You're responsible for your actions. Everybody can say the words, yet people still take that role. What do people get out of being the victim? Like,
It's
what's them?
Yeah, it's an excuse and it's easy in my opinion. And again, you know what? There are situations out there that we all we don't want to offend anybody, and there's always those one or two situations and outliers. So we've got to be politically correct. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of victims use it because it's easy and it gives them a way out, and it justifies them not putting forth all the effort that it takes to be successful. And we as people, I think, are lazy. And if we have an easy way out, then we're going to take the easy route. And it's a lot harder to build something than it is to tear something down. And I think a lot of people are just apt to sit there and say tear down other people because they're not willing to put in the effort and the work it takes to build something, whether that be your life or a business or a great marriage or relationship or whatever. That takes hard work. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're looking for excuses why you didn't do that, and that's the victim mindset.
So you think it's people don't want to feel bad about themselves or think badly about themselves?
Well,
So
I think they don't want it to feel like it's only their fault. Like, it's not my fault, my parents screwed me up, or it's not my fault the government did this, or it's not my fault this happened to me. And they want to push that blame away. And the problem with that is as soon as you give that blame to somebody else, something else, you lose all control. Now there's nothing that you can do because you've assigned the blame to somebody else. And the only way that things get different is if somebody else or something else changes. that's why you have to take 100% responsibility for your own success, regardless of what's happened to you in life. When you take that 100% responsibility, now you're in control. And now what you do matters. And I think what victims do is they give all that responsibility away. And then it doesn't matter what they do because it's not their fault. It's somebody else's fault, or it's the economy's fault, or it's whoever's fault. And now they have nothing that they can do to change things.
How does a person deal with, if someone, let me back up, if someone wanted to take responsibility for themselves or wanted to take steps in that direction, it's going to hurt. Self-reflection hurts. How does somebody deal with that when they've got this safety blanket that's worked maybe for their whole life?
Well, I mean, the thing is it's not a matter of where we start, it's where we finish. And that's what I think a lot of us need to realize is every day we get to, I truly believe that where we are is exactly where we choose to be. We choose to be where we are right now. Again, that kind of totally obliterates the victim mindset, but we choose to be exactly where we are. If we have a bad relationship, we've chosen to be in that bad. If our health is bad, for the most part, we've chosen to have bad health. So I believe that, again, 99% of the time we choose to be where we are. And if we choose to be where we are, we can choose to be in a different spot. And all that takes is making different choices and living with purpose and having that clear vision of what you want to do with your life. And that's why we've started I Got Smarter, our goal fulfillment program, and use goals to kind of turn lives around. And because we understand that the only thing that's different in our lives are the choices that we make.
How did you make that choice about drinking?
You know what? I had some faith that helped me with that, some religious things that kind of opened my eyes that drinking was not, alcohol was not probably the best thing for me. And because of my faith, I chose not to drink.
So it was a choice.
Yeah, it was a choice. I mean, it made all the sense in the world. But my faith helped me kind of make that final decision that I wasn't even going to dabble in alcohol anymore. I was just going to abstain from it, and it's been a huge blessing in my life.
It's funny. So I don't drink either, and we all have our different reasons. Mine is simply I'm really annoyed by drunk people, and I don't want to annoy people. Like, I don't want somebody to be annoyed or not like me because of it. So nothing to do with anything affecting my life. It's just I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we all have.
I
We all
was a
have
bad drunk. I was a bad drunk as well. I mean, I did so many stupid things that I would have never dreamt of doing if I wasn't drinking. And I wasn't a social drinker. I drank to get drunk, and paid those consequences. So like I said, when my faith kind of came up and I started doing that, it was an easy decision for me at that point.
So I want to know about. So well, first off, again, you have a book out. The book is available where?
It's everywhere books are sold, but probably Amazon is the easiest. It's called The Unlucky Sperm Club. You're not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices.
Okay. And again, that victim was why that was what was interesting. Well, a lot of it's interesting. So you have an app out. It
Yes.
came out in November, if I'm.
Well, the app. So we actually, with this whole COVID thing, we had an app out and a program out that we called 6 Months to Success. But that program had people meeting in groups in person, and it had a goal guide over it. And when COVID struck, there were no groups meeting and no people meeting in person. And so, like with anything in life and business, we had to pivot, and we had to kind of figure out, okay, how are we going to make this work? And, the program within 6 months to success was called I Got Smarter. And so what we did was we redesigned the app to where you could do everything virtually, and made the app more friendly, and as far as understanding how to use it virtually. And so we pivoted, and now it's called I Got Smarter. We're still going to follow through with 6 months to success when that makes sense and when we can meet together in groups again. But right now we're pushing I Got Smarter. You can download it from all the app stores, and you can use it by yourself. But the one thing that I think kind of differentiates us, and we kind of had that in mind with 6 months to success, is that you can invite what we call a success partner. And what we found is you're 95% more likely to achieve your goals if you have somebody who's there to help you stay accountable to
Hmm.
your to the things that you said you were going to do. So we have that, but there's so many things that are built into this program. After I became that first person in my family to graduate from college, um, I became obsessed with goals and personal development, and I use them in every area of my life. I I went to every seminar I could afford. I bought every book I could, get my hands on, and every program. And what I realized was there were a lot of good things out there, but there was not a program that really gave you all the tools and the knowledge and the support that you needed to essentially make it almost impossible for you to fail. And that's what we've developed with I Got Smarter. I've put all those things together that pretty much assure, as long as you don't quit, pretty much assure that you're going to reach your goals. I mean, all we need is enough time, enough energy, and enough focus. And I truly believe we can accomplish any goal we put our mind to.
So is that what the app is about? Is about putting together an action plan and then executing it and being accountable?
Yeah, and it walks you through. We start off with a self-assessment to make sure that you know exactly what you want to accomplish, and make sure that you're clear on what your goals are and what prices you're going to have to pay to accomplish that goal, because there's nothing worse than working years and years on trying to accomplish a goal and then realizing that it wasn't the goal that you wanted to accomplish at the end of the day, or that you weren't willing to pay the price that it took to accomplish that goal. So we make sure that you're very clear on what those goals are and what prices needs to be paid. And then, the app will walk you through on we have a morning ritual that you plan your day out
Mm.
from the get-go. We always start with gratitude. We always start with success principles. We review our goals. First of all, we teach you how to write a proper goal. I think that's a lot of people's problem, is they don't know how to write a proper goal to where your mind's going to essentially start working on that goal and know exactly what you want to accomplish. So we teach you how to write a proper goal. And then, as you go throughout the app automatically populates your task list for the day. And when you're done with your morning ritual, you know exactly what needs to be accomplished that day. You know what needs to be done to achieve your goals and get closer to your goals. And now all you have to do is sit down and look at your task list, and you know exactly what to do. Because what we found is when most people fail at their goals, they don't know what that next step is. They don't know what they need to do next. And another thing in our program that I think really helps people is a lot of people set goals. We just past New Year's Day, and people set their New Year's resolutions. They set annual goals. And as we can all attest to, last year, 2020, a lot can change in a year.
Mm.
And what we do is we teach you how to break those big goals down into what we call 30-day sprints. And your mind works a lot better whenever that sense of urgency is there, and we can all wrap our minds around what we need to accomplish in the next 30 days. And so we take big goals, goals that could take a year or 5 years or even 10 years, and we break those goals down into a 30-day sprint. And another thing that we do in our program is we only work on 3 goals at a time. That doesn't mean you can't have more than 3 goals. Absolutely, we want you to, But when you're hyper focused for that 30-day sprint, you're working on 3 goals at a time. And that's, our mind can wrap around that as well. So there's a lot of stuff baked in our program, a lot more than we have time to go over today. But, ways that, we're working with our mind and our urgency and all those things that, like I said, you almost have to try to fail at achieving your goals if you're following our program.
Right. Yeah, I think it's super smart. I mean, if you talk to 100 people who teach about life and how to succeed and how to accomplish things, you'll get 100 different opinions on how to do things. But all 100 of them will say you must write your goals down.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you have to put that. And the 2021 version is an app, right? That's way better than pen and paper. But no, I like that. And so, and the accountability, that's the other thing you mentioned. I think is really smart. If you're going to quit smoking, the first thing you do is tell everybody at work that you quit smoking, so they give you dirty looks if you want to smoke, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So what does someone do if they don't have an accountability partner?
Well, the app still will send you notifications and reminders to follow through with what you've said you're going to do. So the app will definitely help you, do that and understand exactly what you need to do. But we suggest that, again, 95% more likely when you have a partner involved with you. So we definitely stress that it's not mandatory. But you know what? If you're playing the numbers, you absolutely should get somebody else involved. And accountability, a lot of people have that negative connotation when it comes to accountability. It's like somebody's going to, scream at you because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. That's why we call these people, we don't call them accountability partners, because you're really, at the end of the day, you're accountable to yourself. We call them success partners because they're there to encourage and support you in your goals. They're your goals. They're not our goals. We're not on a team, we're not on a team, and these are your goals that you want to accomplish. And at the same time, I'm working on my goals that I want to accomplish. And what we're there for is we're there to make sure that each one of us is successful in our own individual goals. We're there to add support and encouragement. And you know what? If you fall off the wagon for a day or a week, we're there to help you get back on, because that's what happens to a lot of people is they have a bad day or they have a bad week, even a bad month, and then they throw their hands up and say, screw it, I don't even want to deal with it anymore. But that's what our program does, is we know you're going to have bad days. And one of our philosophies is we're looking for progress, not perfection. We're going to screw up. You're going to miss a day of working out, or you're going to miss a day of eating right, or you're going to, raise your voice to your spouse. But that doesn't mean that you failed. That just means you had a bad day. And the app will help you get back on, back online and get to work at it, and understand that, it doesn't need to be 100% thing. You know what, if you work on your goals and you do a 90% good job at it, you're going to achieve that goal. So we want to get that perfection mindset out of attaining your goals. We want progress, not perfection.
Oh yeah, I mean, the growth mindset is one of the most revolutionary ideas in education, which is exactly what you're saying. So yeah, I think it's super smart. Do you have an online community where other people who are using your app can reach out to one another?
Yeah, and we're building that. I mean, I didn't use any social media until I started this new company, and that's, so for about a year, I didn't like social media. I saw how it kind of affected people, so I stayed away from it. But now I realize that, social media, you can use it or you can let it use you. And now I'm in the process of using it and helping build a community that can, depend on each other for support and encouragement. So yeah, we're building that out. And we're doing a Facebook and an Instagram account, and it's all under Nelson Tressler, and you can find us there. And, you're getting all kinds of self-help tidbits and encouragement and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could have virtual, and I know you don't like the term accountability partners, but people could connect that way. And
Well,
and
and they do that through the app. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's finding a partner, but in the app, like let's say you and I are partners and I see that you've done your morning ritual. I get an alert to say, "Hey, your partner's done their morning ritual." Now I can give you kudos, and what that also does for me is like, "Oh crap, I got to get mine done because my partner's done theirs." So
right.
we definitely connect through the app, and everything like that is through the app to encourage us to do it. And again, we baked in so many things to help us stick to it, because what we've realized is we don't have a knowledge problem when it comes to achieving our goals. We have an execution problem. We just don't, we know what we need to do. We just don't do it when we know we're supposed to do it. And that's what we've baked into this app, is to help us follow through with the things that we know we need to do when we need to do them.
I'm in Atlanta right now, and I'm working on a really big business project, and we've been meeting for the past 6 nights. Excuse me. I'm sorry. About 6 hours a night. Most of it is just brainstorming on the project. Tonight is our last night in town, and as soon as I get off this podcast, all we are doing tonight is laying out the steps. Because without those, then it was just a social week. It wasn't gonna, not that it wouldn't happen, but it would definitely be slower and not, and in fact, it might not happen. So yeah, everything you're talking about, again, I think it's super smart. I'm going to have a link to your social media, to the app, to the book. Everything's going to be in the comments down below. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, if you've been inspired, and your brain starts turning, do it now. I mean, there's so many people out there that they get all fired up and then they're going to wait until next week, next, Monday or next month or after this. You know what? Move forward now. Do it now. And I think that's one of the things that's really helped me in my life is, moving forward when I know I'm supposed to do that. So, do it now. Don't think about it. Don't wait for next week. Don't wait for next month, because you'll blink and not only will a year go by, a decade will go by, and nothing will change because you didn't move forward when you knew you should have.
So behind the camera is my girlfriend smiling, because this is exactly what I say every chance I get on my podcast and what I do. Your ducks will never be in a row, and the timing will never be right to do anything. I've never
Yeah.
once I started this business because the timing was right. I mean, it just doesn't work that way.
No, and I mean, so many people want, you're heading down the street. They want all the traffic lights to be green before they start going. That's not the way life works. And that's definitely not the way that you're ever going to accomplish anything, because just like you said, the lights will never all be green at the same time. But it's like walking through fog. You take that one step and all of a sudden you can see a little bit further, and you take another step and you don't even know what's there until you take those steps. So that's what I'm encouraging people to do, is take that first step, because knowledge is very rarely the problem. You know what that next step needs to be. You know what you need to do. Just take that step, and then it'll open up to you what the next step after that is, even if you don't know it now.
You know what's wonderful about the power of editing? I'm going to edit that last 90 seconds out, and I'm going to steal all the traffic lights won't be green at the same time.
Take it.
When you fog, you walk one more foot. No, I hate bad metaphors. They're just memes that mean nothing. Both of those are really, really, really good.
I
I mean,
appreciate
both
that.
I don't know if you came up with those yourself, but in fact, don't answer me. I'm just going to pretend that you did, even if you didn't. Those were money.
Yeah. Use them. Use them. You have my permission.
Yeah, I know I won't edit this out. I'm teasing. Really appreciate you coming on the show. This is why I'm doing this. I want to talk to people that are interesting, that have interesting lives. I wanted to talk to you about your upbringing for 3 hours, but we need to tie this into the action part of this, or else we're being hypocrites on what you teach. So
Yeah. I mean, good.
you do buy the book, download the app. It has to have the action plan. That's your next step, right?
Yeah, I mean, good stories are great to hear, and they're inspiring and motivating. But that's the one thing that, with the I Got Smarter app is, we can go to a conference, we can read a book, we can hear a great talk, and we're fired up. But that goes away. And what you need is that action plan. You need that program that's going to help you go when you don't feel like it. Because the problem is if you only do the things that you feel like you're doing, you're not going to do much. And that's what I Got Smarter will do. It'll help you do it on the days that you don't feel like doing it, or not motivated to do it. And that'll make all the difference.
All right. Well, I appreciated all the links to everything will be in the description down below. And if you want a really interesting, fun guest on your podcast, keep my number handy. I like talking about myself as much as everyone else does.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Cool. Hey, thanks again. It was great. It was great to meet you. And I am going to download the app and I'm going to check it out because I can't talk about something if I've never used it. So before this podcast broadcast, I will download it and I'll tell people about it.
All right. Appreciate it, Scott. Thanks for having me on, man. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you. Hey everyone, I'm now on Patreon. Click the link below. Not only keep the free content coming with tutorials, tips, podcasts, etc., but get a bunch of free stuff like live stream Q&As, copy of my book, voting on topics, behind the scenes, bunch of cool stuff. Click the link down below to join.